The morning after a night out with friends, 21-year-old Meredith Joyner took a taxi home from the bar, or so she thought. But when her roommate arrived home later that morning, they found her lifeless body lying on the bedroom floor. Strangely, though, there was no sign of a break-in, and nothing had been stolen. The police were baffled and unable to find any leads. Her family was desperate for answers, and a reward was put up. And then one anonymous tip led them to a train station some 180 miles away, where the case has remained unsolved for decades. On November 1974, Meredith had finished her shift at the Doghouse, a local bar in Davenport, Iowa. She worked there as a bartender and had just celebrated her 21st birthday the day before. After clocking off, she met up with her friends, Mike and Doug, and they spent the evening drinking at various bars around town. At around 10:30 p.m., they left to go to another bar, but it's unclear if Meredith made it there because security footage from the bar shows that she was never there. The last confirmed sighting of Meredith was by a taxi driver who dropped her off near her apartment complex at around 11:20 p.m. The following morning, one of her roommates returned home from a night shift at the hospital and let herself in using a key. Inside, they found Meredith's body lying on the bedroom floor, dead from a blow to the head. Her purse, glasses, and other belongings were all there. Nothing was out of place, and there were no signs of a struggle. It seemed as though whoever had killed her had done so swiftly and silently. As days turned into weeks and then months, the police were unable to identify any suspects or find any leads. They had no motive and no idea who would have wanted Meredith dead. Her family offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person responsible for her murder, but nobody came forward. Then, nearly a year after the murder, a woman contacted the police claiming that she could put them in touch with someone who knew something about the crime. The person she was referring to was named Tony, and he apparently knew how Meredith died, although not the killer's identity. According to the woman, Tony had been drinking with his friend, whose name he didn't know, when they entered the bar. Suddenly, the man grabbed a glass from the counter and smashed it over the woman's head, killing her instantly. Then he fled the scene. The only description the woman could give of him was that he was about 6 feet tall with reddish-brown hair. Police were hopeful that this new lead would help solve the case, but when they began searching for the mysterious man, they hit a wall. There were no records of a missing person or murder victim matching Meredith's description, and her family had no idea who this man could be. But what they did know was that Meredith had boarded a train from Davenport to Chicago the night she disappeared. And this was no ordinary train. It was the last stop for the city's only passenger railroad, the Chicago and Northwestern Railway, which ran once a day. Security footage from the train station showed Meredith boarding the train with two men, presumably her friends, Mike and Doug. But the trio weren't listed on the manifest, meaning they hadn't purchased tickets. This suggested that they may have snuck onto the train without paying, which was a misdemeanor offense. But why would Meredith take such a risk? And what happened to the two men? The answer to these questions lay in the train's final stop. When the authorities checked the manifest, they noticed that 3 people had gotten off the train in Chicago, one of whom was a man matching the description given by the witness at the bar. But why had they taken such a drastic step? Well, according to the other 2 men, they were hitchhiking to Wisconsin to avoid being arrested for stealing coal. They explained that they had taken the train to Chicago to buy some clothes and had planned to return the next day. But they couldn't afford the tickets and decided to sneak onto the train instead. When they were caught, they were given a choice: pay the fine or go to jail. They chose the former, but then realized they still wouldn't have enough money for their return trip. That's when they hatched a plan. They would steal some coal, return to Davenport, and hide until they were sure the cops weren't looking for them. Their plan was to stay at a friend's house in Chicago, but unfortunately, their friend wasn't there when they arrived, so they were forced to find alternative accommodation. That's when they met Meredith, who agreed to let them stay at her apartment. But upon arrival, they discovered that she had already been dead for several days. The police believed the 3 had killed her in order to steal her money and belongings. but it appeared as though they had no way of knowing that she was dead. This meant there were two possibilities. Either they had killed her during the robbery, or she had been killed by someone else. The police were unable to prove either theory, and all three men were eventually released. To this day, the case remains unsolved, and Meredith's killer has never been identified. For more unsolved mysteries, stay tuned.